I came here today with no questions at all, and now I have way too many.
But that means we have done our work, and that is co-creating at its best.
Yes, and it feels great. But the question I have is, I discovered the teachings of Abraham probably in September, October of this last year. For the previous 35 or 40 years, I had been studying similar subjects with very limited success, in quotes, in terms of manifesting or achieving health and wellness, etc. During that time, the previous time, I spent many, many years in pretty extreme circumstances of lack of wellness, loneliness, and poor health and poverty, etc., which I can understand perfectly from my present standpoint. But at the time, I spent a fair amount of time just raging against it.
Good.
And sending out the rockets, which help me now, of course. But can you help? It hasn't left me completely. And while I feel good now, much of the time, I still look back and I think, why on earth? Why go through all of that to get here? And I can think of it now and kind of help it to make sense. And I can look at it from a law of attraction point of view, and I can make it make sense. But it doesn't feel right to me with all of that in mind. Can you help? And I'm sure I know I've talked to other people, many people like ourselves here that have gone through similar things, and I wonder if you can help and smooth that out.
Well, we will give you our perspective, and we will leave it to you to do the smoothing out of it. But we think that as you hear this, it will appeal to your logic and reasoning, and it will make sense when we speak to you in terms of the greater picture and the laws of the universe as we know them to be, and you are able to make sense of those things, the bigger picture and the laws of the universe, then everything else begins to fall into place. When you start with false premises, it's hard to make it fit. When you start with premises that are law-based universally, it's easier to make it fit. And we do understand that the biggest question that still looms is, why would anyone put themselves through something for anything? While the benefit is just fine, did it have to be this hard? So we'll start with that answer. No, it didn't have to be that hard, but we want to tell you why it was. When you are source energy and you come forth with powerful intentions, that broader picture that we were talking about, you have this knowledge of the laws of the universe and this feeling of invincibility that went something like this. You said, I will expose myself to contrast for a good reason, because the contrast will help me to personally, specifically, and powerfully decide what is better. And when I do that, Source, all of the power that creates worlds, will take me at my discovery and will surround my new decision and embrace it and then call me forward to it. You knew that. And you knew that you would have guidance within you that would say, the better it feels, the more you are moving toward that, and the worse it feels, the more you're not. So you were born into an environment of contrast where many people around you had known that coming in, but got lost in the contrast along the way.
I actually have memories of being very young and feeling that very thing. And feeling it slip away and get lost.
That's helpful. Now, we want to speak to this rage issue that you described, because we want you to remember that. So here is the new become you, calling you this way. And here you are over there, for whatever reason, feeling disempowered and powerless. and Source calling you. Well, the call of Source, when you are in despair, the call of Source doesn't sound like harps and angels. It doesn't sound like love and appreciation. You're nowhere near those vibrations. When you are in despair, the call of Source, you can still hear it, but it sounds like rage. It sounds like revenge. And the reason that we know that so clearly is because we see you when you are in despair and you find the feeling of rage or revenge. We see you in your relief. There is relief. There is a new finding of power in the anger that isn't there in the despair or in the feeling of powerlessness. But by then, you and almost everybody over there where you are feeling that way have also lost your awareness that Source is calling. And you long ago, we touched on this earlier, most of you, instead of reaching for the thought that causes you to join you, most of you are instead reaching for the thought that will bring the best response from someone else. So when your natural instincts brought you to rage, the people around you said, oh no, that's inappropriate. You should not go there. So your natural resources brought you into rage. You bumped up against this brick wall of people saying, no, that rage is inappropriate. So you went right back to despair. So you spent all those years in despair, rage, despair, rage, despair, rage. And that's what makes it feel so hard. Well, now here you are. We said earlier that words don't teach. And we do not believe really that anyone who has not experienced something can really teach it as clearly as someone who has. So here you are. You've passed through this rage back into alignment again. But how about you beginning to tell the story? How about you? Think about all of those people that are experiencing all of that despair, that are bumping up against rage and are being turned back into their despair. Don't you have something that you would like to say to them? Don't you want to say, no, friend, that rage isn't wrong. That rage is natural. That rage is you on your way back to the empowered you. And I promise you could say to them that you won't get stuck in rage if you keep on a-coming. In other words, there is relief in rage from powerlessness, and there is relief in anger from rage. And there is relief in less anger from more anger. And there is relief in hope from all of that, you see. So now you have that conscious reminding of who you are and how you're supposed to feel. We can see how coming back into alignment initially might give you a little twinge of resistance or resentment for all those years that you weren't in alignment. We certainly understand that.
Perhaps more than a little twinge.
But you can't go there without turning back upstream. In other words, that's the opposite of relief. So as you hold steady to your newfound discovery that it does get better and better and better and better and better, that answer to that question about why would I be willing to put up with that for so long will begin to ring clear to you. You see, when you think a thought, that thought vibrates, and law of attraction responds to that thought. And all of us knew that law of attraction must be consistently fair. It would not work if you could approach a negative situation, give your undivided attention to it, and have something else happen in your life. The law of attraction must be consistent, otherwise you have never any feeling of empowerment. And what's happened to so many of you is that you have put yourself outside of your own power by listening to the guidance that's coming forth from others, instead of listening to and trusting that if it feels better to you, it's a step in the right direction. If we were visiting with you way back then, we would have told you this story, but you didn't have access to us way back then because you hadn't lived enough life to amass enough desire to attract the likes of us. In other words, it took some powerful life experience and some powerful asking before, as a mass consciousness, you summoned us in this powerful, clear expression that you have summoned us, you see. You knew coming in that this would be the time of awakening. And we really call it the time of reawakening. Reawakening into your own power. We cannot conjure the words, "We are sorry for your discomfort," because our knowledge of the value of the contrast does not allow us to feel bad about the contrast. We do want all of you to discover your guidance and remember it earlier on. And that's really what we are about here in your time-space reality. To remind you that life is supposed to be fun, that it does not have to be hard. It's been interesting. Jerry and Esther have been monitoring what's going on around The Secret, which was based upon the work of Jerry and Esther and Abraham. And then we won't tell you the whole story because it is not essential to what we're getting at here. Jerry and Esther were removed from The Secret, and the basic tenets of what Abraham teaches remain in it. And now Jerry and Esther are aware that people around the world, while there are many people that are embracing the idea of it and liking the feeling of empowerment, I create my own reality, so to speak, there are many people who are pushing hard against it as if it is too simplistic. And Jerry and Esther find themselves again and again wanting to defend, wanting people to understand, yes, you can create your own reality. Yes, it is about mind. Yes, it is about thought. Yes, it is about law of attraction. But they realize that when people get hold of an idea that they are not ready for, upheaval always happens, you see. And out of the upheaval comes powerful desire, which will summon much more energy to it. But now the stream is moving faster, which means those up to speed with the stream will do well. Those not up to speed with the stream won't do so well. And that really is the basis of your question here. Why would I expose myself to conditions that would cause my stream to go faster than my ability to keep up with my stream? And we say, you never ever thought that that would happen to you. And really, when you look at the big picture, that never can really happen to you. Because in the moment of croaking, you're up to speed. So then you say, oh, well, we've come full circle. You're saying, Abraham, that the contrast was really worth it. And we say, from every vantage point that we have, yes, 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 yes. And you say, well, it wasn't worth it to me while I was suffering. And we say, that's the point of suffering, isn't it? That's guidance telling you you're crossways of what you really know. And for a long time, you knew that. For a long time, you knew it wasn't supposed to be painful. It wasn't supposed to feel that way.
Most of the time I did know that. It seemed to make it worse.
Only because then you didn't know what to do about it.
Right.
Now you do.
Right.
Now you do. The good news is, and there's lots of it, you'll never go back to that time. You can't go back. You know too much.
Right.
Now you know who you are, and now you know what to do. And we say, even someone as wise as Esther, who has as much information flowing through her, she can get crossways of this stream. And when she gets crossways of the walloping stream that she's got going, it beats her about the rocks. It does. It's not good for her at all. But the even better news is it never lasts long because she knows better. In other words, she lets the stream beat her up every now and again, just in order to launch more rockets of desires. But she never moves to that place of powerlessness, and you won't ever again either. Clear enough, or is there something more you want?
No, it's very, very clear, and thank you. I have one thing that is niggling at me for a question, and that is, when I was in the midst of this, knowing as I did that it wasn't supposed to be that way, there were times when I would ask whatever the power is, Source, God, directly, just give me something to go on. Almost anything would work. Just give me something. And
Source gave you rage.
And
are you hearing us? Source gave you rage. In other words, Source called you right into rage, but you didn't expect the answer to be in that form. You thought it should be more harp and angel-like.
I wanted something that felt good, yes.
Well, but everything's relative, isn't it? And rage feels better than powerlessness every single time.
Right.
And anger feels better than rage every single time. And hope feels better than any of that every single time. You're hearing what we're getting at, aren't you? In
yes,
other words,
I am. Absolutely. And what I'm having trouble with is I hear it perfectly from what I know now, and I'm trying to go back and have it make sense for the me that was there.
But you see, if you could have, and this is what we want you to teach others, if you could have held to the tenet that a little bit of relief is God answering and you moving in the right direction, you'd have been all right no matter what, no matter where you were. But because because you lost sight of that and instead you were listening to others saying, no, the rage is bad, now you couldn't quantify your journey. When Jerry and Esther move across this nation, they always know where they're going. They know what direction they're going and they know how far it is, and they always get there and they never feel stress about getting there because it's understandable. Point that way and keep going, you're going to get there.